Welcome to the Jeffers Brief, only on Contra Radio Network.
Hello again, Intelligentsia. John Jeffers here on the Jeffers Brief, only on Contra Radio Network. Welcome you to another episode. I just got up. I got my cup of coffee after I had my orange juice. You know, it is what it is. So bear with me as I become caffeinated. I could become out of control. It won't be the first time. Welcome to the listeners, the intelligentsia. My commentary for today. Normally, I write my own commentary and I make my own notes. However, The Hill ran an article, and I'm going to use that as my commentary for today. And the entitlement is this, my friends. What must never be asked about COVID-19 and its vaccines, nor ever revealed. This is by Douglas McKinnon. Doug, you got my thoughts down the way I see it. Now, for the censors out there, this is not an anti-vaccine piece. It's just the opposite. I believe the vaccines represent the best hope to billions of people around the world. This is simply about our rights as Americans in the age of COVID-19 to ask certain questions. And I say that because although some will disagree, for many people, life seemingly has become a dystopian science fiction movie of the do as we say edicts. And quite sadly, an ugly and potentially harmful us versus them mentality has taken hold with some on both sides of the COVID-19 treatment divide. It's a divide that has appeared because of the consequences of forced or controlled ignorance. During the first few months of the pandemic, you could use Google or another search engine to look up questions such as, what is the survival rate for COVID-19? Or, what is the average age of those getting the virus? Or, does the virus hit the obese or those with chronic morbidities harder? Or, where did the virus originate? Or, has the virus gotten weaker as it has mutated? But just try to do that now. You'll find that many of the answers are buried, dating back to early 2020, or simply impossible to find. Why is that? Shouldn't we Americans be allowed to look up such information and then make judgments ourselves? In the United States, it can seem as if they, typically the politicians or their proxies, have decided for our own good that certain questions should not be asked. Certain answers should be buried. Certain scientists and doctors should be criticized. Certain people should be fired, and a certain class should do the thinking for the rest of us. There is no sane person who does not hope or pray that medical science could at least weaken the threat from the SARS-CoV-2 virus, so that we can resume life as it mostly was before COVID-19. That said, everyone, including doctors and scientists in the field of infectious disease, should be able to ask questions or express doubts about certain protocols without being castigated or fired from their jobs. In this unhealthy us versus them dynamic that has sprung up as a toxic byproduct of the pandemic, there are many Americans, politicians, celebrities, and Twitter trolls who are not only calling for the firing of doctors, nurses, firefighters, police officers, military personnel, teachers, pilots, air traffic controllers, and U.S. intelligence officers, but also taking joy in that possible outcome. Yes, there are people out there who have this, who are part of the pseudo-intellectual elite, and they take great joy in saying, you know what? I can ruin your life. I run your life. I will sit there and cancel you. There are people out there that like doing that. They enjoy that control. Fire them. Can we step back for a second and realize what that punishment truly would mean? Punishing these Americans potentially would deny them the ability to buy food for their children, pay their rent or mortgage, buy gasoline, pay for medicine, or pay for the care of loved ones. This is what us versus them can produce. And the mainstream media have sat there and fanned and stoked the flames. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. They are. To this point, on a recent Real Time with Bill Maher, the liberal host said, "The world recognizes natural immunity. We don't, because everything in this country has to go through the pharmaceutical companies. Natural immunity is the best kind of immunity. We shouldn't fire people who have natural immunity because they don't get the vaccine. We should hire them." Yes. Many doctors have made the same point. Others have argued that many Americans who have not yet received vaccines are not necessarily anti-vaxxers, but simply adults who are waiting as long as possible to see the effects of the vaccines play out, and our understanding of the COVID-19 vaccines compared to natural immunity and other questions remains a moving target. Now, my good friend, Don Lowry, producer on Contra Radio Network, has his own show, hasn't done one in a while. I got to crack the whip on him. You know, and I had a close friend of mine who lives a few blocks down. Haven't seen her or her husband in, good Lord, almost 10 years. But when we do see them, you know, hey, how you doing? What are you guys doing? Da, 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 da. I mean, they got small kids. I don't have small kids. So we don't, you know how it is. It's like having single friends and your friends who are married. They just don't mix. Anyways, both of them, I talked to them. There was what? When Don said, well, I'm going to tell you, what Don said, it must have been in 2 or 3 months interval, and then I saw my good friend Megan. And they both said the same thing. They don't even know each other. And what they both said, and I'm paraphrasing because they said, it's not that we're anti-vaxxers. It's the principle of the matter. And I said, okay, what principle? I knew what they were going to say, but I wanted to get them, to say it. And they both said, it's the principle of the fact that government is telling me I have to. I get it. My response to him is this. Is this the hill that you choose to fight and die on? I said, for me, it's not. I said, and I said to both of them, I said, you know me. But I said, as far as I'm concerned, this is not the hill to fight and die on. There'll be others in the future. This ain't it. First of all, the cost is going to be way too high for any kind of a victory. You might get the moral victory, so what? Anyways, I understand that. All right, let me get back to my commentary. So at one recent story in the Hill reported, vaccinated just as likely to spread Delta variant within the household as unvaccinated study. Another story from last week reported immunity from both vaccines. COVID-19 infection lasts at least 6 months, and that's the CDC. The problem with the CDC is they've been so politicized, their message is so convoluted. It's like the Department of Justice and the FBI. You just don't trust them anymore. They are not worthy of our trust and our respect. Now, this is not a criticism or indictment of the vaccines. Everyone should hope for their complete success. The point is, as with all virus, there is a learning curve. Shouldn't we want those in charge to know as much as possible to give them the confidence needed to set policy for the rest of us? Americans should be rooting for medical science to win the war against the virus. That said, we should still have the option to any question on any policies, whether it's political, medical, or other, that are handed down from those who hold dominion over us and the lives of our children. The last time I checked, that is our right as American citizens. As President Biden said in this inaugural address, that's democracy, that's America. The right to dissent peaceably within the guardrails of our republic is perhaps our nation's greatest strength. Unless, of course, you're with BLM or Antifa, in which case It's okay. You can have all the violent riots you want. That's all right. Oh, what? What's that? No? You're on the right side? Oh, no, no, no. No, no, no. You don't get the same. You don't get the same. Which brings me to my next point. I'm sure we've all heard at some point in time in the last 6, 7 months, maybe almost a year, that the inmates of the January 6th protest, I will not call it an insurrection. It is not an insurrection. I'll tell you what, they can call it an insurrection on January 6th as soon as they decide that the people burned down the courthouses in Seattle and Portland, attacking federal courthouses, federal installations. When they call that an insurrection, then they can call the January 6th protest an insurrection. Until then, they can just kiss both sides of my ass. However, it's been getting out and nothing is being done about it. This is why the American public has and is losing faith with our judicial system. Of course, I'm speaking about that the January 6 inmates are enduring worse abuse than the Gitmo detainees. Brutally beaten, stripped, hogtied, humiliated by guards. One prisoner is blinded in one eye. My friends, you know what? They're in federal prison, the January 6 protesters. But if they were BLM or Antifa, they're running around. They burn down people's homes. They attack people. They burn down their businesses. They loot their businesses. And they get arrested, and they're out on bond. Sometimes it's a signature bond. So we ask ourselves, well, why is that? I'm going to tell you why. Because the judiciary is so afraid of the mob as opposed to upholding the rule of law. They are so afraid of the mob. Oh, we better let them go. We better not make it worse. Don't make them angry. Here, let's get on our knees and ask them nicely not to do it anymore. But if you're a conservative or a Trump supporter, oh no, you will be at, oh no, re-education camp for you, my friend. You think I'm making it up. I'm not. TeaParty.org, exclusive. This is from, there's no date on it, but this is true. Not only is there political persecution going on in America in the wake of the January 6th ordeal that Democrats have insisted was an attempted insurrection, but hold on. But those that have been hunted down by the FBI and charged with crimes are being held captive and tortured. Meanwhile, has the FBI bothered to go hunt down the people burning down the federal courthouses in Seattle and Portland? And I mean, it's a whole different thing. That's why we don't trust the Department of Justice anymore. They've lost our respect and don't deserve our trust. They've become politically weaponized. Now, the Gateway Pundit reported on a man named Ryan Samsel, who was leading the charge against Capitol Police that day. Samsel reportedly pushed over bike racks, stormed the Capitol, and allegedly injured a female officer. Well, at least he didn't shoot her. Oh, that's right. That's right. That's what the Capitol Police did. They shot Ashley Babbitt and killed her. But don't push her. Don't push a female officer. Samsel was arrested during his incarceration in a Washington, D.C. prison. He was brutally beaten by guards, which resulted in the loss of one of his eyes. There was not an isolated incident. Many other reports of abuse and torture have come to light in the months since January 6. On Thursday night, attorney Joseph McBride appeared on Newsmax and talked to host Greg Kelly about the ongoing abuse and torture of the January 6 political prisoners in D.C. Listen to this.
But this is ridiculous. And now we're joined by Joseph McBride, another attorney. Famously, your client sat at Nancy Pelosi's outer office desk. I'm not actually sure. Let's take a look at Big O's feet up on the desk there for a moment, Mr. McBride, and we'll get back to you in a second. There he is. And actually, my first question is that Nancy Pelosi's secretary's desk, or is that actually Nancy Pelosi's desk?
It is not Nancy Pelosi's desk.
You know, I had a feeling because I've been everyone.
Hold it. It's not Nancy Pelosi's desk. It's the taxpayer's desk.
Says that in the media, and I'm looking at it, and no, that's a staffer's desk, and that makes a lot of sense. So your client, by the way, has been out of jail since April 27th. I believe he's awaiting trial. What's next?
He sure is. He's home, and right now we are in the discovery process. This, as you well know, is the biggest investigation in the history of the Department of Justice. As such, there is a massive amount of material that the DOJ needs to obtain and subsequently turn over and then we review. So we are in the discovery, exchange, and review process for the foreseeable future. Trial likely in this case won't be till next year.
So your guy, Big O, who we've met on the show, and is possibly one of the most notorious characters of January 6th. You secured his release somehow, and so many others are still in jail. How'd you pull that off? What should the other lawyers be doing that they're not doing that you already did?
So, Greg, it's a reasonable judge and application of law to fact. What I can say about the January 6ers who remain incarcerated or detained at this point is that their constitutional rights and human rights are being violated by the Department of Justice and the federal government at this very moment. The law is clear that no punishment of any kind is appropriate for a detainee. Despite that, numerous detainees are being held in solitary confinement for long periods of time. They're being denied medical care. They're taking beatings. They're being denied sleep. They're being psychologically, emotionally, and physically tortured on a regular basis.
Wait, hold on a second. Who's beating them up? Other prisoners getting into fights? That happens in prison, or staff? What are you actually alleging here?
I am alleging that the guards are beating them up. The staff are beating these prisoners on a regular basis and have been doing so for a long time. This is no exaggeration.
Was your client Richard Barnett, nicknamed Big O, sitting at that desk famously? Was he beaten up by staff?
Absolutely was. He was beaten. He was dragged. He was hogtied. At one time, his pants dropped below his ankles, exposing his private parts while he was taking a beating in front of a female officer, and he had to beg and plead to be able to pull his pants up out of embarrassment. Greg, it's important to note that solitary confinement is widely accepted as torture by the ACLU, the United Nations, the Legal Aid Society, multiple members of Congress, including Elizabeth Warren. At this point, we're going to call on Amnesty International to investigate the human rights violations taking place in the DC Gulag right now.
You know what? I've got my issues with Amnesty International, but they're good for some things. I understand that they are very concerned, have been, about Gitmo, and the more I hear, the more this sounds like Gitmo. And it shouldn't be happening in America. It should not be happening in America. Joseph McBride, Richard Barnett's attorney, I want you to say hello to Big O. Hey, he may have to go to jail. That's up for a jury and a judge and you guys, but we all make mistakes, and maybe he made a big one. We'll see. I appreciate it. All right, thank you very much.
Let me continue. So again, McBride told Kelly, what can I say about the January 6th protesters who remain incarcerated or detained at this point? Is that their constitutional rights and human rights are being violated by the Department of Justice and the federal government at this very moment. And he went on to explain that the law is clear that no type of punishment is appropriate for a detainee. Despite that numerous detainees are being held in solitary confinement for long periods of time, they're being denied medical care, they're taking beatings, they're being denied sleep, they're being psychologically, emotionally, and physically tortured on a regular basis. Greg Kelly asked again, who's beating them up? McBride told Kelly, I'm alleging that the guards are beating them up, the staff are beating prisoners on a regular basis, and have been doing so for a long time. This is no exaggeration. Now, it sounds like those who have been politically persecuted in the U.S. are being treated far worse than terrorist scumbags in Gitmo. So, where are all the human rights groups? Why is this being permitted to happen in America? This is completely unacceptable. Not only have these Americans been hunted down and arrested by the corrupt FBI for the crime of being present on January 6th and entering into the Capitol building, they're being literally tortured and abused. If this doesn't sound like re-education, what does? America is heading down a very dangerous path, and Nancy Pelosi's committee to investigate the January 6th insurrection is sure to make things much, much worse. Now, thankfully, she showed her hand when she rejected the inclusion of House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy's picks of Jim Jordan and Jim Banks. Republicans need to conduct their own investigation into the January 6 events, as well as the treatment of those hunted down and arrested by the FBI. America deserves to know the truth, and these Americans deserve their freedom. So, all right. So again, there it is. What's this one? All right. So we have, America has its own Gulag. Thank you, Federal Bureau of Prisons. All right, next. Survival. Oh, by the way, if you check our website, ContraRadioNetwork.com, you know, in 2019 and 2021, Contra Radio Network was chosen as on the list for Best Prepper and Patriot Podcast. 2019, 2021. We've got links for it. All right. Check it out. Just now found out about it. They don't even tell you if you're on it. Just got to kind of come across it. Now, survivalfist.com. An EMP attack could be worse than you could imagine. Preppers, you listen to this. You need to know this. There are two kinds of preppers in our community. Preppers fully aware of all the possible catastrophes and a shit hits the fan event, knowing how bad and messy it could get, and preppers that secretly wish a disaster such as EMP would take place. Now, the latter couldn't even comprehend what a post-apocalyptic world will look and feel, both to their physical health and their psyche. They believe they'll be the next Rick Grimes, you know, the main character in the TV show The Walking Dead, or perhaps Negan, just, you know, blast people's heads out with a baseball bat. So let's cover the second type briefly. These folks pray that the grid will fall. They believe they'll be in some sort of advantageous position to the rest of the world. Flashback. There ain't going to be a world or people to compare yourself with. Their philosophy and the way of thinking is simple. I was a smart dude. I prepared myself. And now you'll see who wins the life game. While it's hard to say this aloud, some people just want the crap to hit the fan. That's it. It's out there. They don't like how our society works. They feel they are forgotten, and they can't stand the fact that evil and immoral people have taken the world. Sure, there's some truth to that, and I get it. However, it's one thing to try and prepare or fix things and fight for a cause, and it's another thing to secretly wish for depopulation by a natural factor or a human factor. That's not cool. That's crazy thinking. I'm not a psychologist to give you the answer as to why such thoughts could occur in people's heads, but I can tell you this. These people have no idea the enormous power of an actual EMP attack, one that is of unimaginable proportions. So let's try to picture this in a post-apocalyptic world. Obviously, no electricity. Electricity is what runs our entire world. I've always said it before. That's the little thin venues of civilization. I mean, it's thin. It's a fuel to distribute your clean water, your lights, your food, and literally everything you consume every single day. Can you seriously imagine a world without electricity? Who's going to be fighting the wildfires? Who are you going to call in case of emergency? Oh wait, every single day would be an emergency. Sure, you had your first aid kit and your bob. You have stocked extra supplies for the next 2 years. Then what? What happens if there's a flood and you lose all your gear and supplies before the 2 years mark? The moral of the story is you can never be fully prepared for every possible scenario. That doesn't mean you shouldn't prepare. You should. But don't think for a second that your life will become any more comfortable in a world without electricity. It will be worse than your worst nightmare. This will affect your health. You won't feel safe, always on the watch, expecting any moment that looters will come to get your stuff. Every minute, every hour. You won't be able to have a good night's sleep. 24/7 alert mode will kick in. Imagining things, hearing things when there's nothing out there, sleeping with your rifle in your hand, shooting ducks and your own shadow. All sorts of crazy thoughts and chaos is what awaits you. By the way, sleeping with your rifle, if you've been in the military, you've done that. And it's not going anywhere. It will be there to stay, grow, and consume you day in and day out. You think looters will be your biggest enemy? Your neighbors? Wrong. You'll be your worst enemy. And this is what you'll become on a good day. Even the toughest grown-up man or soldier has a breaking point. Do you consider yourself to be better than the rest? And you can handle every pressure and obstacle that would occur in the long-term off-grid event? If so, more to you. Hats off to you, sir, madam. But if not, please be honest with yourself and reconsider what you wish for. How about nuclear power plants? This is a big one. Do you know that how many nuclear power plants are operational just in the USA? 60 fully functional nuclear power plants with 98 nuclear reactors in 30 U.S. states. What happens when electricity is out? They have power generators to keep them running for 2 weeks or a month, and then a nuclear meltdown. Complete collapse spreading across the entire ecosystem and coming from 60 different directions. Straight to your bug-out shelter. I hear you. You're saying, you're mistaken, buddy. I took that into account. Did you find the perfect bug-out location? Okay, great. Sorry I mentioned it. But are you sure your location is safe? Are you sure you won't be forced to relocate? I believe you have bugged in far from a military base and there's no chance on earth a nuke falls close to your area, right? You never know what tomorrow brings. What about wind and clouds raining uranium straight onto your crops or your natural water supply, such as the local river? Are you going to use the commercial purification tablets that you bought from Amazon? Yeah, good luck with that. Plane crash accidents. At any given moment, 9,700 airplanes are traveling through the air on average. That's almost 10,000 airplanes going radio silent. Ticking bombs of aluminum that will crash in every single state in the U.S., causing such enormous disasters, explosions, fires, casualties, and guess what? Ain't no fire service, police, military, or hospital that can help you. You are all alone. The traffic is jammed, chaos and panic on the streets. This will cause such a chain of events that even the best film producer can't imagine. All right, perhaps Spielberg can pull something better than this. Anyway, don't think for a second that you have planned everything ahead and that you are in the rabbit hole safe and sound. You can't predict where the next plane crash is going to take place. You can probably minimize the chances of that happening by picking the right bug-in location. But it's all just guesswork and assumptions in this phase. Trust me, don't wish for what you can't handle. It will get messy, loud, and scary in no time. Are you sure you can handle all that pressure and you'll make it out alive to your safe home? Can you dodge bullets? Can you escape fires? Are you sure your escape road won't get blocked by an airplane wing? You are a moving target, and this is just the beginning. Think again. Do you really want this to happen? Why not just stick with your favorite Netflix show, grab a Coke and popcorn, and just relax in your cozy house? Do you prefer living in a bunker for the next 10 years? Is that going to make you happy? Will that event make you feel that your life finally has a purpose? Think again, my fellow preppers. This is not a movie. This is your life and the lives of 7.5 billion people across the globe we are talking about. Here's an additional chain of events. Just a few of the major events we want to touch on briefly. But make no mistake, the list is vast. So what else would happen in an EMP attack and grid-off scenario, both short and long term? Number one, estimates are that 90% of the population of the U.S. will cease to exist. 90%. Mass starvation. The EMP will take a lot of the infrastructure with it. No water, no communication. Gas pipelines would spark, causing massive firestorms. No transportation. Electronics would be fried. We'll run out of food fast. Shootings, killings, people going Mad Max. Immoral people trying to stay alive. Talk about an evil world. There you go. And it will send us all back to the Dark Ages. Conclusion is this, my fellow preppers. Being prepared is essential, but being realistic is crucial. Let's hope that we'll never experience a shit hits the fan scenario of such devastating proportion. It's always good to use our imagination or watch Rick Grimes Finding Zombies, but there's nothing sexy in living that life. Okay? I have to admit, Finding Zombies is actually cool. But until that day comes, let's focus on learning new survival skills. Turn off the TV, go outdoors more often, learn how to grow your own food, and of course, prepare ourselves for the unexpected. All right, there you go. Let me check something here real quick. All right. All right, my friends. I've said it, I put it out there. Prep today, live tomorrow. You need to listen to Dave's show, The Lightning Round. Please, give it a listen. Good guy, good information. It's good stuff. You need to hear it. All right. Listen up, my friends. I'm John Jeffers, here for the Jeffers Brief on Contra Radio Network. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.